Hello, I'm Katherine O'Fallon, the Executive Director of the Marine Research Hub, leading efforts to advance ocean solutions and innovation in Florida and beyond. By 2030, the global ocean economy is projected to reach $3 trillion and 40 million jobs. And Florida, surrounded by water, is uniquely positioned to lead the way with marine solutions with a global impact. At the Marine Research Hub, we connect stakeholders, elevate oceanographic research, and commercialize marketable solutions that drive investment opportunities, create sustainable jobs, and ultimately protect our marine and coastal environments. Founded in 2017, the Marine Research Hub bridges the gap between scientific discovery and real-world application. Through collaboration between researchers, entrepreneurs, policymakers, and industry leaders, we accelerate commercialization, investment, and ecosystem building, creating lasting impact for our oceans and coastal communities. We are just beginning to make waves, and the potential is limitless. Join us as we fuel the blue economy through innovation, sustainability, and strategic investment, from Florida to the entire world. Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of the Blue Economy Podcast. I'm your host, Katherine O'Fallon, the Executive Director of the Marine Research Hub. I'm really happy to have you here with us for another episode. And I am so looking forward to sitting down today with Kristy Ward, who is President and CEO of Ward's Marine Electric. We're going to really get into the history of Ward's and stuff. But I do want to say that this is Kristy's first time.
She stole my line.
Being a guest. I was a guest on her podcast.
Yes, you were.
About a year ago now, I think it's been.
Almost,
somewhere right around this time.
Right around a year, you're right.
Yeah, I think
Season 3.
Season 3. And now we're going to get into some of the stats and the details of the Ward's Way podcast. But let's start with kind of the history of Ward's, because you have such an amazing family history, something that I know you're very proud of. So tell us how Ward's started and just a little bit of background.
Sure. Easy for me to talk about my family. Thank you for having me. And yes, I'm honored. This is my first sit down on camera podcast. I have done some on the web, but I'm so honored that I get to be a part of this podcast.
And we're sitting in her office with this great view behind us.
Sorry we didn't get a beautiful sunny day, but I didn't make that call earlier.
It's afternoon in South Florida.
Right.
Sometimes we get, usual rainstorm. Maybe it'll clear up. I think, what's the saying? If you wait
15 minutes, half hour, the weather will change. Yes.
There you go.
So my grandfather started the company in 1950, and he came out of the military and was working on generators out. And I kind of tell this story because, at least this is the story that was told to me, because he was working in the Everglades on generators. But back then in Fort Lauderdale on Wednesdays, businesses closed for families to go fishing. And it was okay to do that. It was kind of, Wednesdays and Sundays. So there may have been a religious component to it. I don't know what that is. And maybe fishing was the religion. But anyway, and so his thought process was, there's got to be a way I can turn this generator work into something working on boats. And so that's exactly what he did. He was also a pilot. And so one of the ways that he was able to grow the business was to fly to the Bahamas to work on the boats that were over there, provide parts, and it just kind of started snowballing from there. So it started in 1950.
1950. Your grandfather, and then your dad.
So my father joined the company in 1972, but before that, I'm going to hit you with another one. In 1961, my grandfather and grandmother were one of I think it was 140 or 114. Don't fact check me. But I think it was 100, I'm going to say it was 114. Let's go with the lower number. Businesses, which is a lot for back then, got together, and their goal, at least from my grandfather's perspective, and I'm sure there were others, was to convince the city to build pedestals to keep the boats here and have them come here and stay here longer.
The pedestals meaning the shore
dockside
power.
Pedestals. So 15 amp services is what they wanted. 15 amps.
And what are the amps at now for most?
Well, if you asked Megan, who's at Pier 66, I would say her pedestals are probably anywhere from 200 amps, very small, up to 1200 amps.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting, the power requirements, how they've changed. But it was the Marine Industries Association and the businesses coming together to say, how can we figure out how to keep boats here more? And I can't think of a more important movement in the 60s, just for South Florida in general, being the yachting capital of the world and all the economic engine that goes on here with having the boats come here and be here, and the crew and the economic impact that we always talk about. So then my father started in And then I joined the company, and he just retired after 52 years. And then I started the company in 1996. And it's interesting because as a family business, you would think I was groomed to be a part of the company, and I really wasn't. My parents were very good about that they didn't force my brother and I at all. Like, well, this is what you're going to do, and you're going to take over the business, and one day you're going to grow up and you're going to take it over. In fairness, my dad knows this now, so I can say it, but like my mom didn't even let me use the restrooms in some of our original locations. She's like, those are gas station bathrooms. You can't go in there. And mainly it was because they had the old Makita drill calendars on the back, which were back then in the late 70s and early 80s, slightly inappropriate. And so, but it's funny, now that would be nothing, especially with what we see on social media.
Yeah.
And then I went to school to be a lawyer. And I was home, I was studying, I had gotten my teaching certificate. I was going to teach high school senior government.
I did not know that.
See, you learn on
Love
podcasts.
And
I was going to be a Broward County school teacher. My mom was a school teacher. And so I was going to do that until I got accepted into law school, and I was applying to Nova. I had the LSAT scores. And my dad said, well, could you help us out at the company? We need to do a catalog, help your mom do a catalog. And I was like, oh, I don't really know how to do a catalog. Well, you went to college, computers, so you'll figure it out. And to timestamp it, I tell people I went to the Barnes and Noble. So first of all, there are still some.
There are a couple.
The one that I went to is still there. It's on University. It's in Plantation. And I bought PageMaker for Dummies, read it-ish, and then loaded the 27 floppy disk software onto my computer and made a catalog and never looked back and never left the company, never went to law school, had no interests, and it became everything I never knew I always wanted. And I steal that from a movie, but it's like awesome. It's a perfect statement for me.
Yeah. That's incredible.
30 years later.
30 years later. And is there anyone who might be stepping into the role potentially as a fourth generation?
I do. I have my younger son had started with the company last summer and is joining us full-time next week. And my older son is also planning to join the company in the near future as part of the media side that we're doing, which we'll get into later.
Yeah, we'll get into a little bit more.
So I do in fact have fourth generation already lined up.
That's excellent.
So yes, I'm excited.
Oh, that's really great. And it sounds like your grandfather and even your father really didn't plan on it becoming this, legacy family.
No.
I mean, they're really happy.
100%.
But
they are.
It wasn't really, like you said, forced on you.
There wasn't that pressure that we have to build this legacy and you have to be a part of it. And I did not do that to my kids either, that they've always known that it was here, but they've earned the right to pursue their own careers and have their own lives, and they've done that. And now they've made a choice, and it was their choice to come.
Yeah.
So
that's probably why it's even more meaningful.
It
is that you chose it, and now your sons have chose it.
Mm-hmm.
It's such an incredible history of your family and history of Fort Lauderdale.
Right.
Because when you said, that your grandfather was such an important, he was the one the Marine Industries Association.
My grandmother was the secretary, so she took all the notes. And I did at some point when we moved into this building, which was in 2003, I did have some files, and I know I gave them to the Marine Industry of minutes from back then, and they were typed. The blue ink was starting to kind of
fade a bit.
Yeah,
the paper was a little bit yellowing, probably. But
yes,
I think that is so impressive. To be able to share that history and kind of know where it all started, and the fact that they recognized the important piece of just having shore power was going to keep the boats here, was going to build this industry up to become the refit and repair capital of the world, become the yachting capital of the world, and to really, this is where boats come from all over the world.
Sure.
And we're going to get into, the fact that you've also grown a bit. So, you not only have Fort Lauderdale as your main headquarters, but where are you guys at now in terms of other locations?
So we opened a Riviera Beach location in 2012. That's a lie. 2005 was our first location. And then we were at our previous location starting in 2012. We expanded to 2 bays. And before that, we were there. Again, don't fact, but I want to say from 2008. So the years, they really do run together. It goes by fast. And now we have our third location in Riviera Beach. So we've been there just about 21 years. The picture you have here, this is from our cargo container of our location in Fajardo in Puerto Rico this year. And we are also announcing that we are a part of Savannah We are going to have our location in Savannah. And so it really, for us, covers a lot of the geographical areas where the boats were going for repair and service, and made sense from where we were shipping product to and where we were shipping technicians to. So instead, it makes sense to set up really brick and mortar and have the, amenities there and be able to have general operations. Because once you go someplace, if you're not just visiting and only going there to do a little bit of work, you want to be able to offer all the services. And to do that, you have to be able to have the inventory and the people and the Ward's Way.
Yeah. We'll talk about the Ward's Way in a second.
You'll hear that a lot.
You're going to hear that. So talk about, this is, for a lot of people who don't understand the marine industry as much and really know what goes on in this space, most people would look at the yachting and especially engineer and electrical and things like that as a male-dominated space. So for you, being a female CEO and president, tell us how that is, not only with the family legacy behind you, but, being a woman in this industry. What makes, what are some challenges? What are some rewards how do you do it a little different, the Ward's Way?
I would say that, men and women are different. So and I think that our leadership styles, the way we communicate, are just inherently different. But I learned everything I know from my father. And I would say, interestingly enough, we'll pick on each other at times on who's more of a softie. And I definitely am a nurturer. I'm a big believer in, as part of a family business, that you do share so much. As we are, not everybody's related, but we are a family. We spend 10 hours a day, many of us 6 days a week. We've traveled together. And many of our employees in our management team, I've worked with personally for the last 30 years. So there is a lot of that. As far as being a woman, I have to say, it's been, to me, a great advantage. And I'll say this because in our industry, you have a lot of, I don't know if it's different in other industries, but I know in our industry, we have a lot of good family value businesses, builders all over the world, but all of them inherently, I believe, in chivalry, in manners. And so while I've sat in meetings, more so where I've observed men talking to each other at a level that would be, to me, unprofessional, or at a level I wouldn't want to encounter, it's never at me that way. I find that men that maybe even have a reputation of being these just absolute, strong, hard arm, oh, good luck to you in that meeting, are very kind and respectful because they have a mother or they have a daughter or they have a wife. And while they will want to approach me maybe with that strength, or maybe we do have a lot of negotiating, that goes away. And so I think it's actually an advantage to be a woman in a male-dominant industry because, at least in my experience in the marine industry, I've met nothing but men with manners and morals, and they would never treat a woman the way that maybe they would treat another man or have that kind of fighting. I don't know.
And
it's been my experience.
And it's becoming more, there's more women who are stepping into roles. And I think, it's really just about the workforce and the work ethic.
Agree.
Like you said,
it's what you bring to the table.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter, male, female, but I think it's, when you look at the marine industry, yes, it might be that tough and gruff, but it's really, when it comes down to it, it's kind of the work ethic.
It really
that
is.
is really, it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. If you, have that work ethic that's really needed to get the job done in the marine industry, I don't think it matters as much. But yeah, I love that you kind of have that unique perspective, because some people will say it's harder, but it's sometimes maybe we have to just look at it like, take advantage of what we're working with, and
recognize that we're different. And exactly.
It's okay.
It really is.
It actually works out that I think, you bring a lot of, like you said, the values that your father, your grandfather instilled, and you're, carrying it on. And that's part of what makes this a family unit. And
I agree.
That
it really is.
That's a part of, being a family.
It is.
Working through all those things.
And one other part I will tell you that my father and grandfather both instilled in me is that you need to serve the industry that you work with and work for. And that does not mean, it can mean whatever you want. It doesn't need to necessarily be an association, but you need to serve the industry that you are going to have a livelihood out of, because you need to make sure that it's there, not only there for your business, but also for the ecosystem. You need to serve that industry in whatever capacity is needed in your skill set. So whether it's being a mentor, whether it's sitting on a board, whether it's something legislative, whether it's donating your time.
Yep.
And I think that goes a long way in building your relationships too. So many of the relationships I have in this marine industry that happen to be men, I've actually had a pleasure of serving with. And so I think you meet each other at a different level and at a different place. And so when it's time to have that business discussion, you've already earned respect for each other over here. Why would you in any way? And so that didn't matter. Serving, nobody asked me if I was a woman when I wanted to sit on a board. It doesn't matter whether I'm a woman sitting over here in this conversation either. We gained our respect over here. So if that's a piece of advice,
that's a great piece of advice, I think. And we're going to talk about that ecosystem a little bit more here. But let's jump into the Ward's Way podcast, because I think this is just phenomenal. You said something the other day when you were recognized, and the Ward's Way podcast won a recognition with the Marine Industries Association of South Florida's annual event.
Mm-hmm.
And you were just talking about how your team, and I think this goes back to the family culture, was that you said you wanted to do this podcast and nobody questioned you about it. Nobody was like, why? No one, I think you just said they didn't even look weird at me.
They were like, we're going to do it. Okay, we're doing a podcast. Okay. So what's my part going to be? And I don't know what to do. What do you need us to do? And it was like, well, I don't know. We got to figure that part out.
You're like, I want to do it. Just hold off a sec.
Wait a second. Right. I'll get back to you.
So what made you decide that you wanted to do this?
I actually, when Bob Rossioli passed away, I remember people in my company hearing about it, and some of the employees were new, and they didn't know that there was a Bob Rossioli behind the Rossioli sign on State Road 84 and Rossioli Marine and Yachting Center. And I just thought, well, my God, what kind of rock do you live under? How did you not know there's not? And I just thought, well, this particular kid is 23 years old, fresh engineer, born and raised down here, but why would he know who that was? And you know what? It's my job. And so we were turning 75, and I really just thought it would be good to do like a video log. And I wanted to, my first guest was my father. And then I wanted to meet with the original, who I thought, we talk about influencers today.
Yep.
The OG influencers. So I picked up the phone and just started calling CEOs and presidents of companies that I knew were like us, that had been around a long time. My neighbor, Jimmy Harrison, from Frank and Jimmy's, who's been here longer than us in the same neighborhood. We've been neighbors in these 5 blocks since 1950. He got here in 1947. So anyway, and that's how but they all had great stories, how they got into the industry. Phil Purcell was great. That was the best story that I heard about how he answered a want ad and like lied about his experience. And I was like, exactly. But you know what? You hustle. Make it till you make it. And you got it and you were phenomenal. And you're a born leader, so it worked. I'll let Phil tell the story. So I'm not repeating.
Go watch that episode.
Yeah, go watch that episode. He was great. And so I lost my train of thought. What were we talking about?
We were talking about the podcast. Why you
And so I just had a chance to meet with all these incredible people. And like we were talking, you and I getting a chance to sit down today. It's such a gift to be able to sit down with people that you work with and work in the industry with, that you get a half hour, 45 minutes, or an hour to just talk about their life. We learn things about each other. And I found it to be so interesting. And everybody on that season just did it as a favor. And people started watching.
Yeah.
And either you're the village idiot or you did something right. And so I thought, well, I'm not the village idiot. And we have great video for our 75th anniversary. And that's all I really kind of wanted. And then it just kind of started, well, we'll try it other places. And I will say that Informa was very helpful to us. I said, we'd really love to have an opportunity to do it at the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show last year. And we needed some extra space. And I reached out. We're a founding exhibitor. And I just said, we're not looking for money. We're not looking for sponsors. We're not trying to, but we'd really like to have a go at it. And Informa was helpful. And now we're in multiple shows, but it was great. And it was just so great to meet with all the different people at the show and really kind of put that in front of our industry. Not a lot of people see podcasts in our industry. We're tried and true and family and generational businesses. But we're not always necessarily we're starting to get there on innovation, but we're not always necessarily, people don't look to the marine industry as the
cutting edge
or forefront on media or doing these, I don't know, any of those type of events. And it was well received. And so I said to myself that the amount of time for me, it's part of serving our industry.
Yep.
And the amount of time I've sat on boards to a point that I think people got tired of seeing my name. Not really, but you know what I mean? Like I've done that and I have served, but I still think there's so much important information that's out there that people don't know. And maybe
Yep.
if you're on a board or you're in that circle or you're in that newsletter or you're following that social media, you might see, but I have another unique perspective and I just want to be able to share the people I get to talk to.
Well, and it gives it a place to live too. Like you
Yes.
go to an event or you're at a board meeting or you're someplace where you're meeting somebody and it's one and done sometimes. You don't
Correct.
necessarily have that
Mhm.
recording of it. And now you have it for everyone. Like we said, you can go back and watch Phil and hear
100%.
conversation again
No,
and
and it's
hear that
true.
story. And so it's a place that people can now start to learn more, go back and learn other things, hear the history, hear
Mhm.
different perspectives, hear also about how everything's connected. And I know you've done about 91, I think I saw today, 91 episodes have been released in this year alone
Mhm.
since you started last year. And you've been at now, so Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show
Mhm.
last year, coming back again this year, it
Yes.
sounds like.
Mhm.
The Palm Beach Boat Show, the Miami Boat Show. You were up in DC for a couple conferences.
The American Boating Congress and then the ICOMIA IFBSO Congress.
So these are, so the ICOMIA, you don't have to say what it's all, the acronym stands for, but who's there at that type of a show?
So it's the
event?
International Federation of Boat Show Operators, and then the ICOMIA is for marina operators. So essentially, these are the people that can host the shows
Yep.
and marina operators. And so it was for them, it wasn't about as much coming together to Washington, D.C. to promote specific regulatory or legislative environment. It's they meet annually to harmonize their ongoings and what is a challenge for a boat show in Germany is still likely a challenge for a boat show in the US. And also, how do we keep attracting and what can we do to have greater experiences, including AI, including podcasts, including media. And so it was thrilling just to get to be a part of and see all of these minds at all of the biggest shows in the world.
Yeah.
That people were coming together to really, and they were not wearing their hat. It wasn't like, well, I'm the Flibs hat and I'm the Mets hat and
Yeah.
it was, we're taking all of our hats off and, oh, you do that? Oh, I tried doing that. And well, you guys are outside. Oh, well, you're inside. Well, and they each thought that kind of like, I'll narrow it down. Like when you have straight hair, you wish you had curly hair. When you have curly hair, straight. So the indoor boat show operators felt like it was such an advantage to be able to have an outdoor show. And the outdoor operators were like, man, you have complete control over your environment. Interesting perspectives. And yet they're both learning from each other on how to make each of them better. Not at all was their competition.
Yeah.
It was really a harmonization and unification of what they're trying to accomplish.
I think that's a great point, is the competition. Like, I think
Right.
sometimes people think that everyone's in competition, but it's actually, the shows are almost like a circuit.
They are.
I mean, they plan
Almost.
it that way.
They are a circuit.
So
Oh,
yeah, take
yeah.
out the almost, but they plan it that way so
Sure.
that everybody can participate. The industry can participate because wherever you go, you have different needs of customers and clients, and the environment's different, and
Sure.
the client, everything can be different, but it's not a competition. You're never going to see two big shows on the
Mm-mm.
same time. They're going to.
They're always going to respectfully,
Yep. And I think that's a uniqueness of the industry that a lot of people don't always understand because they're only in their little space in it.
Mhm.
And so with the Words Way podcast, I think you're bringing this great opportunity to really show the ins and outs a little bit of the industry.
From my perspective.
From your
I agree.
perspective.
And I think we do such a great job as an industry of working collectively to recover from obstacles. Our industry went through COVID too. Our
Mhm.
industry went through the credit problems. Our industry has labor challenges. Our industry, so many people see the boating industry as a hobby, but there's really such an industry behind that. But I think many people need to learn more about the industry. And what we're finding is the more, and I don't mean this bad, they're absolutely wonderful to me, but the more boring I can think a topic is, like, I want to talk about the legislative impacts of the international garbage and what was happening. And I mean, I got the updates from Department of Agriculture and what's been done to help promote that. And you would think that people would be like, one of the best episodes ever was talking about that, because I think people are thrilled to know, peel the curtain, what's behind that industry. And so I get a unique opportunity just through my eyes of who I see, where I go, what we're talking about, thought I'd share.
Yeah.
And so it really is a neat opportunity to still serve that industry in a way and carry that voice. When I went to ABC, which is the American Boating Congress,
Yep.
I really I was really excited, and I'll be very honest, I all but invited myself and said, like, oh, really, I promise I'm really into policies. I really like it. It's a good, and NMMA was super supportive and said, gosh, you really like policy and you'd love to do that? Great. And it was so much fun working with them. But the amount of legislative topics and the amount, whether it's the blue economy, which I know we're going to get into, there is so much going on out there and so many wonderful people making sure that my business can operate and that those boats come here and those crew can get in here and the work can be performed here for all of us, that if you're not serving that or you don't know that, I don't know how you're a successful business. And so I think maybe not everybody had the time to go to Washington.
Yeah, exactly.
Or they don't even know that they can go, or how much is it, or geez, I can't leave my office. It's a lot. I only have 3 employees. Kristy, you have more, so you can, and they're right, but let me show you what I saw. And there's ways for you to get involved. Follow along. If you're not following my podcast, follow along somebody else's. But if you're involved in the industry, you should know what's going on. So I'm just trying to help spread that word. And I find it fascinating.
You've been, that is a great segue kind of into the roles that you've taken on. Like you said, you've been on many different boards. You've been involved in the Marine Industries Association for many years. But I think you're taking now all this stuff that you've been involved in individually, and you're giving a bigger platform to it. And you said it's really important for policy to be shared. And you recognize that the industry has larger companies and smaller companies, but everybody needs to know, and not everyone can go. And so this is your way to make sure everyone is educated, everyone knows what's going on, how it's going to impact their business, how they can be a part of it.
Sure.
If you can't come in person, you can call your representatives, you can write letters, you can put your name on a letter that we're bringing with us.
Right.
There's lots of ways that
you could be active.
Didn't know that they could do. They can still be involved and still be educated and aware of what's going on and how it's impacting their business and their employees, their workforce, without being boots on the ground all the time, because maybe one reason or another. And I think that's an important piece of it, is that you use the resources that you have available to you. And not everyone has the same resources, but everyone has something they can give: time, talent, money, whatever it might be. And whatever you can do. So,
and I will tell you, just to add one more element to that, part of the other reason that we did, for example, season 3 was a legislative season. And we went through, which I always laugh because the hardest part was remembering a certain guest's name. And I always say it because I must have said it to myself 2,500 times to not get it raw, which was Michelle Torortua. And every time, and so I'm always like, I introduce her everywhere. I'm like, I know her name. I know her name. I got it. But talking about foreign trade zones, or talking about, like I said, trash, talking about the Lacey Act, so many people didn't know what some of those items are, but also being a resource. One of the things that we've encountered, misinformation or dock rumors that go out there about crew visas. Suddenly something's changed. And if you're on social media or the news, there's just so much noise out there. And so in addition to doing the podcast, our producer, Jordan, who's also our marketing manager, she had a whole full-time job before this, writes a blog for every episode. And mainly that's to be able to get those websites or give away for people. And also, if a captain calls me, can I tell you the amount of jobs that we've had where they say, well, we're not going to be able to do the yard period because my crew. Really? What's the challenge? Well, let me send you this article. Here's the contact. Here's everything. Well, first we send them to patients, but and Deborah Ecke. But then between the two of them, but still, it's another way that I can be supportive to my customers. So I encourage all businesses, if you have this idea, if you think you can be, it doesn't take much necessarily to do a podcast, and you don't have to take on what I'm taking it on. But if there's a message you'd like to share, your social media, your Facebook, your LinkedIn account, your TikTok, your Instagram, whatever it is you do, you can affect change and you can be a part of that. And that I'm preaching over here to the choir, but I think that for me, it really opened my eyes. My generation, the younger generation gets it, but I'm Gen X. Gen X, I don't know that we knew we could do that. And so this has been very empowering to see that people pay attention and we can be helpful and make a difference.
Yeah.
It has to matter.
It does. And I think it kind of hits back to the ecosystem in the marine industry and supporting the people that help this industry run. And that kind of leads into the blue economy because the Marine Research Hub is part of the blue economy. Sometimes people are like, well, you're more about like solutions for the ocean, but it's also solutions for the ocean and the water and our ecosystem, coastal resilience and aquaculture and, different decarbonization. But that's important for the marine
industry.
100%.
Because people are buying a boat
Mhm.
and going out and being on the water for some expectation that's out there. And so I think I'd love for you to kind of touch on why, why you are involved, why you support Marine Research
Mhm.
Hub, why is that important for the legacy companies like Wards to be a part of the growing innovation ecosystem?
Well, I think let's break it down to bare minimum. Our boats that we work on, whether I happen to be electric, whatever the marine industry is, you have some connectivity to a boat.
Yep.
You're either 1 to 2 degrees away from it, you're on the boat, you're around the boat, your product is
Servicing the boat,
servicing the
yep.
boat, some level. But those boats need waters to be in
Yep.
and places to go to be able to be serviced at. And you would like those places to be near you, or also places that you travel to. You want to make sure that those economies also are being protected. And so to me, the simplicity is that you need to support these blue economies because they are talking about infrastructure. We're talking
Oh.
about seawalls. We're talking, you know it a lot more than me, but that infrastructure is very important because if you can't have strong seawalls, you don't have a place to have a dock.
Yep.
You don't have a place to put your boat. If you're looking at a broader scale, we're protecting these working waterfronts that we
Yes.
talk about, that,
Yes.
waterfront property. So the blue economy is all of that. It's everything from the water until you walk into your building. That is the blue economy. So if you think that's something for over there, you're missing it. I did wear the blue for the blue economy.
Ooh, there we
I
go.
dressed perfectly, but it really is that ecosystem, and maybe the environmental side on our coral reefs, which are so important for
Mhm.
research. And people talk about the Marine Research Hub as if it's really what a connectivity that is, as far as, this, what I found astonishing when I first learned about, and the creation and formation, which you should talk about too, which you do on all of it, but is that I had no idea that all this research had been done and then beep, beep, boop, put on a shelf over there. And by the way, that school's right over there. And it was done on research like right here,
Yeah.
but it just gets put on a shelf because there was no mechanism to really put it out into the world that said, okay, so we did the research, we can solve this problem. And also under there, we found the solution to another problem. I had no idea that it was just sitting on shelves.
Yeah.
And the fact of just creating the Marine Research Hub to be able to say, look, we can put those into practice and connect people, that's a blue economy.
Yeah. And it's about, the jobs that are being created that are going to take care of our industry. And I also think people don't always realize how overlapping the jobs that you have in the
Yes.
marine industry as an engineer, as a boat captain, as plays into the research aspect and the solution-based aspect. And it's very much an overlapped industry skills and training up for jobs that we haven't even created yet. I mean, think about your grandfather who
Right?
basically what he started to where it is now.
I can't, I know.
Sometimes it just blows my mind where we've come. Like we were talking last night a little bit about, just the technology from the cell phone, and everyone has their different stories,
Yes.
depending on what generation you are.
And it's faster now.
Yeah.
I feel like things took 10 years before, and now next year it's totally
much
different.
faster,
You just
yeah.
have to kind of.
Trying to keep up with it. And the fact that we're sitting here doing a podcast,
Right.
basically on, with minimal
Yeah.
amount of equipment right now.
And it's for the whole world to see.
And
it.
everyone can watch and see. And I think that also breaks down barriers for people to say, I can be a part of that industry. I can, maybe change jobs. And, it's not unheard of now for you to have, people right out of school. You're working with with the Marine Industries Association, the pre-apprenticeship program, supporting the industry from the early stages, but you're also bringing in people who are making career changes and coming into this industry. And I think that's part of this whole amazing ecosystem that is South Florida, because we all recognize that what we're doing here and what we're doing over here, it's all part of taking care of where we live, work, and play. And we want to make sure that people recognize that we have the best of the best down here in South Florida.
But we have challenges.
We have challenges, but we have ways to overcome those.
Correct.
With solutions.
Correct.
I always like to say, people say we have all these problems. And I like to say challenges because challenge to me says there's a solution behind it.
And there's an opportunity to get to work together. And the amount, and that's what I would say to people, that if you don't know how to get involved, just look up Blue Economy, go onto the website. And if you see something that just interests you, reach out.
Yeah.
There's a way. I promise you, there's a way for you to get involved.
There is. And you've touched on so many of it, because the policy side is such a huge part of what people don't know. And I love that you've really taken on this role. And I don't think you even intended to do it, but
no, but it's super interesting. It's very interesting, and I won't get into it, but I learned a lot. Even at this last ABC, there's polystyrene is a chemical that is found in boat manufacturing and in a lot of boat products. And, sending out a policy that says, well, you have to note how many parts and you're not allowed to have this amount. And I think the whole movement on that was that we didn't want microplastics ingested in our body.
Yeah.
Okay. But that does not necessarily mean that the amount that's in a boat that's being built or the amount that's in a gasket that's in an internal pump is not going to get into your skin, into your personal ecosystem, shouldn't necessarily be regulated the same way as a plastic that you would ingest. And when you get a regulator that doesn't necessarily, they happen to be in a position and their job is to remove this chemical from a human intake, that means it needs to be removed from things that are manufactured. But, when you have somebody that doesn't realize what that pen stroke could do to an impact, it's education. And what I have found is that every single legislator, it doesn't matter what party they are, and every single regulator, it does not matter whether or not you thought they were an enemy. When you explain the industry and you come in with your facts and you give them the information and what we're doing to be proactive and we understand their position, every single one of them is always, oh, I didn't know that.
Didn't know that.
I wasn't aware. Can you follow up with that? Do you have statistics to back that up? Can we do a follow-up meeting? And they'll meet with you. But it's our job to tell that story. They're just not supposed to know our industry and all that's going on. So that's what makes it important.
Yeah. Well, it is about everybody wants what's best for their employees, for their business, for their community. But there's also, there's give and take until we can get to what the best is. And at the same time that, solutions are being developed to be more environmentally friendly, to be more efficient with our energy. I mean, we're really trying to elevate that people are doing their part in the industry. I mean, we have the Innovation Sustainability Awards at the boat show. We started that with Informa. Now going on
gotten big.
4 years, we've been doing it now. And it's really just that little bit of recognition that people are doing their part, but you can't really, do your part without support from all the entities. Right. And part of it is policy that has to be, yes, we may want to get to that point, but we can't get there by leaps and bounds if we don't also have the rest of the ecosystem working together.
Or if you have these barriers that are there that are going to stop you. And I find that so many times these barriers are, somebody put one there and didn't realize what it did, the unintended consequences. Yep. Our industry is so often caught up in unintended consequences that it was meant for commercial shipping or it was meant for, oil tank rigs. Yeah. But that's not necessarily a 22-foot center console. And they can't be treated the same. And people will look at you and go, well, of course not. We didn't mean that. Oh, okay. We'll fix
now
that.
We have to fix that.
But let's instead be ahead of it. And something like the blue economy keeps that all the time in legislators' minds. And it's an opportunity for us to go speak to. I encourage everybody to have a relationship with your congressperson. I don't care if they're your party affiliation. It's completely irrelevant. You need to speak to the person that really has control over your life and your neighborhood or your business and explain what's important to you. And I promise you, they won't hate you. They don't know your voting record before you walk in. If you speak to them, that is their job. They got into being that to help you. Yeah. And I have never found a legislator that won't work with you if you explain. You can't come in with something over there. But I think if you explain where you're coming from in your position and that this is hurtful, they will almost always help you. Yep. But it's our job to do that.
It's the job. Everyone needs to be not only be educated, but educate others. Yeah. Because knowing what is going on, that's gonna bring solutions. Because what you might come to without knowing the rest of it is not a solution that's gonna work. But the more you know, I was like, I don't know if you remember those.
I do. The more you know, and the little rainbow that used to go over. What was that for?
It was like was it like reading rainbow or,
I think
or
so.
something?
Yeah.
Like just the more you know, educational. So always, go back to the education side. Well, I think this has been so fabulous to talk about, the legacy of Wards, where you're at now, what you're doing with your platform, the fact that you're really kind of telling the story for the industry, but educating people not in the industry and outside of the industry of what's going on. So before we go, one question. So if you were to sit and have your grandfather sitting across from you, what would he be like? What would he say to where you're at now and Ward's Way and all of this stuff? What do you think he would tell you?
I think he, in some ways, I think he would say not much has changed, and he would laugh. And because, small businesses are small businesses. The problems of 75 years ago are still the challenges sometimes you have today. So not much has changed. But on the other hand, I think he would really like that we have not coined the phrase, but that it's our culture. And the Ward's Way is who we became, and it started with him. So I would hope he would be proud to know that we carry what mattered to him in the beginning, which was always to serve the boats and always do it the best, even if it means you may lose money, even if it's not, even if you've made a mistake, you've got to own it. That he would be proud that we still carry the Ward's Way with us. So I think that's what he would say, because that is who we are.
Yeah, I don't doubt that he would be sitting here very, very proud.
Not sure what he would think about the podcast, but he'd say, you did like to talk. So
he'd be like, using her talents the best way possible.
Right? That's right. The gift of gab is paying off. Cheerleading was not, I was not going to be a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. Cheerleading was my thing, but there's only so far you can take that. So now I'm on the podcast. So,
there you go. And so how can people find more information? Where do they go?
So our YouTube channel is Ward's Way 75, and you can find us on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, everywhere you find podcasts. You can find your podcast. It's Ward's Way.
Excellent.
And then you look for it there.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
It's been a pleasure,
This
Katie.
has been
Thank
so
you.
much fun. I do agree. We had so many questions that we never got to.
No.
But maybe we'll have to do an update after some more podcasts that are, it's literally growing.
Well, you know what? At Fort Lauderdale, I think we should talk about it here. At Fort Lauderdale, I would love to do a group with the winners.
Oh, for the
Innovation
Awards. All right. There we go. I love it.
There's a clear winner, but I feel like there's a first, second.
Yeah, we normally have a couple different categories.
Okay, so it's categories, but I would love to do a follow-up, because that would be something that people should know about, and maybe they'll be ready to be up for the next one.
Cross collaboration going on.
There we go.
I love it.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much, Kristy,
My
for
pleasure.
sitting down. And thank you all for joining us for another episode of the Blue Economy Podcast. Find Ward's Way. Go back and watch some of those episodes. You can watch the one that we did together.
Yes, absolutely.
You can watch the one with Phil. And we hope to see you again on another episode of the Blue Economy Podcast in the future. And have a wonderful day.
Be sure to link and subscribe.
Link and subscribe, and make sure that you share it, because the more you know. And if you want to start your own podcast,
you should do it.
Take Kristy's advice
Go for it.
and go start it. So thanks, everyone. Have
Thank
a wonderful
you.
day.
If your brand belongs in the heart of the yachting world, this is where it happens. Yachting International Radio reaches over 1 million yachting professionals and enthusiasts every month, with 77 million impressions, 220,000 social followers, and 74,000 podcast subscribers. Our hosts are insiders, crew, captains, CEOs, trusted voices shaping the industry. This is targeted, high-impact advertising in a luxury niche. Visit yachtinginternationalradio.com/advertise. Your audience is already listening.